Um,
I kind of didn't
yeah.
know if I had to like enter again. I was waiting.
Yeah, yeah, I texted you on Telegram also, and I was just thinking that I
Oh
might have
no, my
forgotten.
phone is not with me, so that's why I didn't see
I
it.
thought maybe she's waiting for me to add in, but then again,
I texted you on Twitter.
yeah, that was my second option. I had Twitter open. Yeah, I think, yeah, people are joining in now. Let's wait for a couple more moments. Cool. Samuel has said that he can see us. Hey everyone, we're waiting for a couple of moments to let more people join in. I'll be the host of the evening and we'll start in a few seconds. Cool, we'll start. Hey everyone, good evening. Let's all welcome Niharika, our guest. She's a writer and an amazing businesswoman. She left her corporate job in 2021 to write full time, and from there, she became a 22 times top writer on Medium. She created some digital products, did her cohort summit to 2021, where she taught over 150 plus people across 30 plus countries. And she also got accepted to LinkedIn Creator Program. Today, she'll be talking about how to grow and be successful on LinkedIn. And the floor is all yours, Niharika.
Thank you. I find it very awkward that somebody's talking about my work. And thank you for having me. It's very awkward that I can only see myself when I'm talking and I can't see anyone else. Because usually when I can see others, depending if they're smiling or not, I know like if my humor works or it sucks. So I'm just gonna be like really neutral and not try to be funny or something, okay? Yeah, so I'll just give an insight about my journey. I think, yeah, it's December now. So, in October 2020 is when I started writing online because everyone was telling you to do a side hustle. Um, but more than that, I think since a few years I was anyway feeling like quite a misfit at work. And I also changed companies. I mean, honestly, it's not like I changed companies. I got fired from my first job, so I had to change a company. And yeah, they were both really great companies in the country to work for. But I kept feeling like a misfit. And then, like how they think about Gen Zs today, like, oh, like we're just lazy. We don't want to work. We don't want to put in the work. So I thought that maybe that's me. And the issue lies in me. And when I told my mama I want to quit my job, she told me like it's just a phase, people are not getting jobs. How can you just quit? And you have to like work to earn money. And so I just thought it's a phase. But I kept writing online, and I started writing on Medium because on LinkedIn I thought I was feeling awkward that my employers will see it. So I would just post my article links on LinkedIn. But my team knew that I'm writing. They kind of did not say anything about it because I wasn't being as controversial as I am today. I wasn't like shitting on the corporate sector or something. So yeah, sorry that my voice is muffled. Like I think my city, Delhi, is world famous right now for pathetic pollution. So it's just the effect of that. So yeah, anyway, I started writing online. A month later, I invested half my salary into a course, which is completely unheard of in my surroundings because, we try to get everything for free. And then 6 months later, um, made my first $3,000 online, which felt like I felt like my entire life is big got made. I'd never seen such a big amount in my entire life. I thought I'm not going to see it until I turn 40 or something. So I thought I've made it. And those $3,000 were made through writing on Medium, but also I was freelancing. So I thought my life is made and I'm just gonna become that high paid freelancer that, they were publishing articles back in the pandemic days about freelancing. I quit my job because I promised myself that if I earn at least three times my salary for 3 months, I will quit. It took me 4 hours to hit publish on the email, which I had already created in my head in December to type in March. So I sent it, and yeah, so as fate had it, everything is not a fairy tale. My highest paying client completely.
Niharika, I think you muted yourself by mistake.
Oh yeah. So sorry about that. My highest paid client completely ghosted me, and then suddenly I wasn't earning from anywhere apart from the notice period that I was serving, which was 90 days. I kind of don't know like why a notice period 90 days in some companies, but yeah. So and then there were two clients in the pipeline because I played by the books. I thought I'm going to do everything that people are telling me to do, everything that others are doing. I tried imitating everyone. Obviously, it's not imitating, but learning from everyone's blueprint to use those elements in your own. And the clients in my pipeline also ghosted me. Or one of them just said, "You're from India, so you should not even be charging this much. I'm going to pay you like $10." And I'm like, "Are you crazy?" So, yeah, shit happened. And I was just crying because I cry. Genuinely, I cry a lot. I cry in all movies as well. So, that's why, like, if you send me anything negative on the internet, I cry. So don't ever troll me because I will cry. So yeah, I mean now I've become better, but I used to back that time. So yeah, after like crying a lot, I thought now that I've quit, I'll just carry on with it. And I'll see how it goes. Worst case possible, like the pandemic will get over someday, and I probably will get a job someday. I worked a bit, and then again, as fate had it, I underwent two knee operations at the same time. So I had both my knees gone, and I was on bed for weeks, which I was earlier excited about, thinking that I'll watch Netflix and eat good food and read books. But again, can't when you're kind of just immobile, there's nothing luxurious about it. It's a terrible place to be in when you can't do anything yourself. So when Arunima said that I started Summit 2021, that was actually me being on bed, being very, very, very free. And I randomly tweeted that um, does anyone want help with being consistent online? Because comment on my Twitter tweet and I will DM you with information. Obviously, with a few hundred followers, I thought maybe three, four people will comment. Because back then, if I got like a double digit like, I used to think it's so cool, like 10 people liked it. And I think like that was also the time I was like kind of connected to Arunima. I was like super small on Twitter that time. I was surprised that over 120 people replied to that tweet. There were over 80 people filled the Google form that I sent them. And I randomly, this is just me, freshly operated with nothing else to do, with dysfunctional legs, sitting in my bed and doing like a random experiment because I thought anyway, I'm such a small account. Worst case scenario, I suck. So what? Who's gonna bother about it, right? So I took 40 people from 20 different countries and conducted the first ever cohort of Summit 21 free of cost. It's a course on writing consistently online, and till date, we don't have the course content on the course page. So I also find it very strange that people trust a random person on the internet and pay a few $100 because I would not, but I feel very grateful that they do. So yeah, we have run 11 cohorts so far, and we have had great speakers like Justin Welsh or Ankur Warikoo, Sahil Bloom, Tim Denning, and yeah, so that's how Summit 21 started. But I'm not here to talk about. Um, I hope that this actually tells you the power of the internet. I'm talking about Summit 21, but you realize like it came out of one tweet. And this is before I started LinkedIn because I was a bit scared about LinkedIn and I did not have traction on LinkedIn. It's only a few months later that I realized through Summit 21, or literally a year later, somebody told me that, so why don't you talk about it on LinkedIn? And I told them because it's so salesy. Why would like I sell a course on LinkedIn? And they said, no, because I have known about you for so long, but for months I did not even know that I have something that I can spend on to learn from you. And that's when I realized that this entire thing of sales, the fear is so deep here that we think that people are going to judge us if we talk about it, but actually, I completely messed up my customer journey by not talking about it. Right? Now, completely moving to LinkedIn. I started LinkedIn being really scared, and then I just started pouring my heart out and writing about what I want to write. A lot of people get confused that what should your niche be? And what do I write about? My answer to most questions that you will probably send me is just write. Because how to write better, how to know what to write about, how to build an audience. The answer to that is literally to just write. But something that I believe about niching down is that don't worry so much about your niche that you don't start writing. Write and then figure out your niche. For instance, something really the most cringe thing about me is that once upon a time, until 2020, I was an Instagram influencer, which I cringe very hard at, and I deleted that account. And for 5 years, I created content on health and fitness because of my own fitness journey of losing 25 kilos, which is like 50 pounds. Which is why, do you realize I conducted a course on consistent writing because consistency doesn't come from writing for me, it comes from hitting the gym every single day as a fat kid. This is another lesson that a lot of your strengths at work come outside of work. It doesn't have to be something that you're doing at work and you have to create a product around it, right? So, yeah, so that's how Summit 21 was born. But coming back to LinkedIn, um, your niche, you don't have to know it right now in this call or even a month from now. After this call and after the little exercise that we do in the end, just start and you will figure it out. Don't worry about what do I write about. See, right, you may want to write about 10 things. Write about 10 things. I promise you, 6 months later of being consistent with writing, you cannot write about 10 things with equal passion. 10 will become 7, 7 will become 5, 5 will become like 2, 3. And you can stick to 2, 3. Okay. So that is one famous question that I get about niching down. So I thought I'll address that right away. Another thing that why should you be writing on LinkedIn, right? My bet for the whole of 2024 was to write entirely on LinkedIn, even though it doesn't pay me like Medium to write on it. Reason being, firstly, it's not reached its saturation point like many other platforms. Yes, it's cringe, but it hasn't reached its saturation point. Secondly, I think it's where your customers are. I think it's where your clientele is. Um, the once I became really, really viral, that news houses covered me this summer. It affected me very badly mentally, and I was just thinking that I can't believe that journalists are doing like full-fledged 3 year degrees to copy paste my tweet and publish it as news. But do you know what? In that entire debate, I got completely disgustingly trolled on Twitter, and I had a very healthy debate under my LinkedIn post that talks about the difference between two platforms. I'm not saying what is better, I'm just talking about my experience. On LinkedIn, if people disagree, they very edu with a lot of, good um statements, educated statements, they disagree. And that's fine because you don't have to agree to an opinion. But on Twitter, people can just be because they're anonymous, they can be anonymous and they can say shit. So I just think LinkedIn is more civilized platform and I also think that it's going to keep growing. They are now pushing videos big time, which was never a LinkedIn thing. So for those of you who have services and products to sell, I think LinkedIn is great. But for those of you who just want to build a brand or just to attract an opportunity or just, for future, or for those of you who are at an age, like your mid-career level where you want to share what you learn, in order to come across as a thought leader, I think LinkedIn is the best place for it because it is a work platform and everything that you've learned so far, I feel like as a content creator, you must do service to people around you and that's how you win. So I think if you have like 15 years, just an example, 15 years of work experience and you're sharing what you've learned, it's immense value that you must give out. So that's why I think LinkedIn is great. Okay. Um, Normal fears are I'm assuming a lot of people here do have full-time jobs. That if I have a full-time job, should I write about on LinkedIn at all? Because what will my employer say? So when I was a part of the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program, we had one of the CEOs of a big company here who came in and she said that if my employee is writing 5 posts a day on LinkedIn and he is not doing his work, it is an issue. But if he's just writing, I really don't give a damn about it. That's what she said. But in my personal experience, one of my friends, and you can search him up, his name is Ankur Garg. I think he works in either Boston Consulting Group or Bain, one of these consulting firms. And when I met him, he told me that people want to come and join his team because he's writing on LinkedIn about whatever he knows. And I think that is great soft PR for the company, right? And that's an ultimate company to work in. It's a huge company. But the fact that he's able to write what he wants and he's just making the company a more attractive place to work in, that's great. So I did ask him that how do you navigate because he was also one of the guest speakers for Summit 21. I asked him how do you navigate it and he said as long as you're not discussing politics and you're not putting out negativity out there about your own company, you're going to be fine. And I just think like that's not rocket science. Don't shit on people who are feeding you, and you're gonna be fine. It's basically just that. So I would, if you're still timid about it, I would just say start slow. I started with putting inspirational quotes. So start slow because I know it can be scary, and then slowly build up from there. So start from like start with little things which are completely harmless and then maybe you can put out opinions, but just make sure that that those opinions don't hurt anyone. That's all that it really is, right? Um, so I think I'm gonna bug Arunima just in the middle for questions because I usually leave questions for the end, but then there are some questions like if they're relevant till now and that can be addressed, I can take it up, or I can ask you in the middle.
Yeah, I don't see any question as of now. Just someone saying
Okay.
that we want fun modes, Niharika, which I also wanted to add. Keep up your jokes, we want to hear them.
So, okay, that's good. So, cool. So basically, I'm gonna talk about some mistakes that I see, but before that, I'm gonna talk about, yeah, actually, it's kind of related, like what makes a post win versus some mistakes. It's very similar, so why should I like put fancy terms around it, right? Um, I think some mistakes that I see are that firstly, like the post is not interesting, which is why it doesn't get traction. That's a very honest review. The second is a lot of people are writing personal diary entries. There's a thin line between putting personal experience and then making it just about yourself that your post is of little or no value to the reader. If it's the latter, it's not going to work out. And if you're going to do the former, do it after like a few thousand followers when people actually care enough to know entirely about you. But something that I've learned so far in my stint in the creator economy is first of all, we're all narcissistic. We only think about ourselves, right? Like you're always thinking, what are others going to think of me? They're also, those others are also always thinking, what are the others going to think of them? So people will follow you if you give them value, not personal diary entry. Okay. The second thing is that whether you like it or not, the internet is actually an attention economy. If you cannot attract and then retain attention, it will be very difficult for you to get any traction. And if you guys are here, you obviously want traction. That's why you're tuned in to learn about how to grow on LinkedIn. Okay. How do you get this traction? Firstly, the first two, three lines of your post, it's known as a hook. Some of you already know it, but I'm still putting it out there. Okay, it's known as a hook. If the first two, three lines are not interesting, people are not going to read more. When you open your LinkedIn, you see two lines and then there's a read more button. Those two lines is the entire real estate that you have to make somebody click read more. That should be your intention. This person has to click read more. Because if they're not going to, then you're not gonna get traction on your post. Okay. So three things that help me make my hook interesting. First, I try to make it relatable. Okay. So I try to, so the reader feels that I'm understanding them or that I'm coming from a place that they are in and I have been there. Or, I'm just putting out a statement that they can relate to. Okay. The second way that I do this is that I create curiosity. So the reader kind of knows what the post is about, but they don't know it. And then they want to click on read more to know that, okay, what is she talking about? And the third thing, which I have the liberty to do, but if you're in a job, you might not, but some of you who are not, you might, is that I try to make it dramatic. I can write something like, aren't you tired of trading 5 days for two? Something like that. I use this very less because if you've read my content is like really soft and positive and good vibes type. So I don't come across as strong because that's just my vibe. So yeah, these are the three ways. So first is make it relatable. Second is make the reader curious. Third is you can make it catchy. You can do all three at once. You can just do two, or you can just do one. Okay. So a fun way of doing it, a fun way of like making the reader curious is that you kind of tell them, say something like, I'm just making this on the spot, so I might actually make it completely nonsensical. But let's say something like, this one habit helped me finally beat my procrastination. And no, I did not wake up at 5 a.m. Because somehow when people talk about beating procrastination, we always think that they're waking up at 5 a.m. So, and no, it's not waking up at 5 a.m. So automatically a reader will think, oh, what is this habit? It's for sure waking up at 5 a.m. or whatever their assumption is. Okay, so this is a great way just to make the reader curious. One way to use relatability is that I know how you're feeling because it's a Sunday evening. And yeah, nobody likes that feeling, right? Because it's like your heart is sinking. And again, I'm just making this on the spot. I'm telling you what I used to feel. This is something that people will relate to because actually a lot of people have that feeling on a Sunday evening. So they will click on read more. Okay. So just make it curious, just make it relatable. Again, how are you going to get better at it is by practice. But if I can give you a few tips, I would say that use those two, three lines as it is. Don't make it more, don't make it less. Because if you make it more, then it just like kind of because of the how the platform is made, it's going to be like a half a sentence that's going to be cut, and that just looks weird. So just be smart about it, and if there are the amount of words allowed, just use those amount of words and make your hook super catchy. I know it sounds weird that we've been talking about hooks for so long, but in my LinkedIn group coaching program, we talk about one entire week only on hooks because we dig so deep into it just because of how important it is, okay? So that's why I'm emphasizing on it so much. The thing about hooks is, see, there are two things that kill really good content, excellent content, which gets 0 likes or five. The first is hooks, that's why I spoke about it so much. The second is formatting. Because if you see, a lot of people would write huge, huge, huge paragraphs. Okay. And if it's that big on the laptop, just imagine how big is it on the phone. And then they take this advice and then they do the reverse. They're going to write only one line paragraphs. That is also hurtful to the eyes, okay? Because a sentence is supposed to flow. And when you're cutting it, you're cutting, like if I'm feeling the power of writing is immense. If I'm feeling a certain emotion and you cut it in the middle, that emotion just like kind of goes away. So two things that kill LinkedIn content, in my opinion, is weak hooks and really bad formatting. Obviously, there are many more like editing, and I'm going to come to that later. But play around is what I would talk about formatting. Play around with short sentences, long sentences, paragraphs, all of that. Okay. So when you use different types of format, firstly, your content also becomes unpredictable, and secondly, it just is more appealing to read. Okay. And Arunima, anything we that we've got so far that is related to this?
Yeah, we have one question. Niharika, do you have any good examples of faceless personal brands on LinkedIn that remain anonymous and use anonymity as an advantage, allowing them to speak honestly and without a filter?
Actually, I don't think I know any faceless LinkedIn profile. Do you?
Yeah, not me also.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's more of a Twitter thing.
Cool, cool. We have one more. Uh, is it true to keep the language mostly fifth grade level?
I mean, you have to make it simple. How you define it is on you. But the thing is, if you're gonna, again, I know this is a lot of unlearning to do because I remember when we were in school, we were taught that learn a new word, write the meaning, create a sentence with a new word. And that was really good, obviously, to build our vocabulary. But right now, if you're gonna write things that others don't understand, you will not get traction. So it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, we have one more. When you start an account, are you setting it up as a personal profile or a business profile?
Personal profile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You can continue, Niharika. We'll take more in the next session whenever.
Yeah. Cool. So the second part of the session is what I want to get into is about editing. Mainly because if you don't write well but you edit well, you will grow. And that is just the very, very, very sad reality of the internet when it comes to platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn. Not Medium, but Twitter and LinkedIn. Reason being that, again, there's a lot of unlearning to do that. As kids, we were taught the more you write, the better it is, the more marks you will get. But then suddenly here, if we don't like a reel in 2 seconds, we just swipe. So if somebody doesn't like your content, they will just swipe. How do you make it interesting? Apart from what we've discussed about having a hook and formatting, the third step is actually editing it so well that no two sentences should mean the same thing. No two paragraphs should mean the same thing. Okay, because if they're repetitive, people are gonna get bored. You just can't afford for people to get bored. And again, I know this sucks because for those of you who genuinely love writing as I do and have been writing for a very long time, again, this just feels like the question I got earlier, that it feels like you're dumbing down things. But in a way, I think the silver lining is that you're giving out only pure value instead of beating around the bush. I don't think that is such a bad thing. Um, so one way to edit is that so I'll share my three-step editing process and then you can pick it from there. So the first thing I do is just edit normally. Disclaimer, do not write and edit at the same time. If you are typing and you have typos, let the errors be. Do not edit. I never edit. Sometimes I even spell random names or words completely incorrect or they're completely capitalized. I do not bother with it. Your writing part should literally be vomiting out everything that you want to type. Do not glorify it at the same time. So the first step that I do is I edit as it is, how you probably edit if you do. The second thing that I do is I run a software, either I have a free Grammarly extension on Google Chrome, and I have a paid software that's Pro Writing Aid. If you don't have it, then I think you should buy it on Black Friday because you get it on half the price, so buy it next year. But yeah, so I have the lifetime subscription of that because I personally really like that software. So then I run the softwares. However, the softwares are also not as smart as you. After doing these two things, I speak out everything that is there on my laptop, okay? So I speak out my entire article, whether it's 100 words or it's 1200 words or it's 1800 words, I speak it out. Reason being that a lot of the times the way that we flow in talking is very different from how we're writing. Ideally, you would want to write the way that you are speaking, so it's simpler. For instance, when you are talking, you will never use words like nevertheless or on the other hand, you know, you don't use these filler words, but then why do you use it in your writing? These are like three extra words you could use something else for those three extra words or cut it all together. So you figure out these small things when you're talking out loud. So I actually have a fourth step as well, which a lot of people don't do, is that I then read it out on my phone. Reason being that I know my audience is, I'm assuming that most of them are seeing stuff on their phone because either they're seeing it during commute, while waiting in a line, scrolling in office, in college, sitting and scrolling during their meal time. That people are usually scrolling through their phone when they want to kill time and they're bored or they have some free time. So if I will not write text that caters to the format of the phone, people will not read it. So usually how reading out on my phone helps is that with with my phone I can see that that one line that appears to be okay on my laptop, it's actually four lines on my phone. It's too long a sentence. This is something my eyes will not catch online, but this is something at least my phone will catch. Then I'll realize this is too long. Four commas in one sentence. Absolutely not. It doesn't look good. And just some formatting issues. So I fixed the formatting on my phone. And also, surprisingly, even after doing the first three steps, sometimes there are still typos. There are still errors. Like one word repeated twice, nothing online will fix it. And sometimes you keep looking at your words, so you miss out on this as well. So these are the things that I fix when I'm editing on the phone. So the first step is edit as it is. Second is run a software. Third is read it out on the laptop, and fourth is read it out on the phone. I already know a lot of you will not do like the last three steps. Like basically, you just do the first step. But I highly encourage you to just give it a try. It will shape your writing. If you're putting so much effort to write, you might as well keep improving it so that you can get more and more people to read your stuff. So, yeah, editing is a completely different ballgame, and I think it's a really, really good one because it helps you get an insight into your own writing and how you can improve it. Okay. Um, is everything, do we have anything around it? Is everything clear so far? I can't hear you. Can you just I didn't hear you properly. It was a bit muffled. Say something. Now I can't hear you at all. I don't know if it's just me or can others also not. Yeah, can hear you. Oh, you can't. Okay, I'll just talk while you fix your thing. So I think I can read these questions on the side, which is that do you have okay the insights on the algorithm I will cover in a bit. And what about writing articles voice to text? I've never done it, so I don't know if it will work. And the pro writing aid software, I'll just mention it on the chat that it's called Pro Writing Aid. You can just Google it and it will take you to the website. Cool. So, yeah, so the next part is that how do I grow on LinkedIn? Because I've been talking about these really small elements of a post, but then how do you really grow on LinkedIn? You grow on LinkedIn by writing stuff that's helpful to others, but you also have credibility in. And why I say that is that a lot of times people, even people who are really consistent and they're showing up, they have questions like, I'm showing up for 100 days. Why am I not growing? You see the content. The content is entirely from a third person perspective. Okay. So my favorite example of this is actually talking about waking up at 5 a.m. If you write, here's why you should wake up at 5 a.m., I already know the benefits. I really do not want to read like a thousandth post about waking up at 5 a.m. However, if you write something like, I've been from waking up at 11 a.m., I've been waking up at 5 a.m. for 50 days, here's how it helped me. Now I know that you know what you're talking about. And then, even though I know the benefits, I'm interested. I'm interested to know Why did you start waking up at 5 a.m.? How did it benefit you? What were your challenges? How did you overcome the challenges? Now that story, it becomes so much more valuable than here's why you should wake up at 5 a.m. because it has your personal experience, but it's not entirely about you. It also gives value to the reader because it's a unique experience, okay? And thirdly, because you have credibility in what you're talking about. You'd rather talk about things that you know about or you've done compared to just writing for the heck of writing. That doesn't really work out. So, how to grow on LinkedIn? Add value to people and write about what you have credibility in. That doesn't mean you need 5 years of work experience. I also don't have 5 years of corporate work experience, just saying. So, how that happens is that how that happens with me is I usually talk about things that I know or that I'm doing. So, for examples, for a year I've been working with a nutritionist because I've experienced very severe acne for many, many years, spent money on medicines that did not help me, and so I just, went to a nutritionist. And when I talk about healthy eating or healthy living, a lot of the times I'm referring to the things that I've learned in the past year. So that is my unique insight. It's my learning, and not just that, it's my learning plus application, which adds value to other readers. So make your post valuable. There's a just there's an intersection between what you like to write about and what people like to read. So when you keep writing, you will realize this sweet intersection that this is what I like to write about, and this is what people like to read. And then you just cover the middle part, the middle of what do you like to write about and what do people like to read. You won't get to it in weeks or months, but with consistent writing, you will get to it. Okay? So write about things that add value. You don't have to stick to one niche. Start with everything. I would say if you are new, write about whatever you want. Anyway, when you're new, nobody is watching. And I usually, like I've told you, in my content and in my courses, I maintain like a positive energy. But the only, like the harshest thing that I tell my students, and I literally told somebody a few hours ago when I was on a call with a student today, is that your first 50 pieces of article will suck. Just make peace with it because it will. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you and say 10 articles and you'll get 10 followers. No way. First 50 pieces of your work do suck. And I think that's amazing. That's amazing for two reasons. First, because you will strive to reach to article number 51. Second, because I promise you, by the time you reach number 100, you will be so grateful that nobody saw your first 50 pieces of work because they were so bad and so cringy. Because, guys, that's just what growth looks like. That's just what growth looks like. Because when you are starting, you are dying to grow, you're dying to get traction, and then you're feeling sad, why isn't anyone seeing your work? But you're so new, okay, and you're just so overly attached to your work that by the time you reach piece number 100, you're just like, oh, thank God nobody read it. I sound so bad, or I'm talking about this and that, and I'm so glad nobody read it, okay? So, yeah, the second part about growing on LinkedIn, which is really underrated, is engage. Please engage with relevant people because if you are smart about your growth, you should be stealing other people's audience. And what I mean with that is that let's say that you talk about health. So if I talk about health, the first thing that I'm going to do on LinkedIn is follow 10 people who talk about health. Then depending on my bandwidth, depending on what responsibilities I have, am I doing a job? Am I self-employed? Do I have kids? Whatever my bandwidth is, I will engage with minimum three of those people every day. Every day means every day because I kid you not, even today, I know the names of most people who interact with my content for months or years because they've just been at it and I recognize it. Okay, so similarly, what happens when you do this is that firstly, you are borrowing their audience. So if I comment something insightful on a health piece, others will also read that comment and maybe it's going to make them feel that, oh, like this makes so much sense, let me see what she writes about. If they like what I write about, they'll hit a follow, they'll hit a like, maybe they'll DM me, right? So but it's not going to happen if you're just going to, it's very, very, very difficult to grow if you're talking in an empty room. And I think like that's something Arunama and I have experienced on Twitter as well. You do see us comment because I mean, Aru more than me, I suck at commenting. So that's my weakness right there. I tell everyone to write meaningful comment, but literally like my most meaningful comment is I love this. But that's because I genuinely love it. And then I don't know, like, why should I just feel, why should I make it sound more valuable? If I love something, I'll say I love it. As simple as that. But yeah, so I personally suck at it, so do not see my commenting game. Also because on a very serious note, I think there's just too many accounts and too many comments to cater to make it sound really good. But this is really, if you've been here in the beginning, and I took all these big names who came to Summit 21 to speak for no cost, and like let's say Ankur Warikoo for an online talk, I think he's charging about $5,000 for 1 hour. Why did he come for free? Because I've been commenting on his stuff. Hello. Why did Justin Welch come? Because I've been commenting on his stuff. Why did Sal Bloom come? Because I've been commenting on his stuff. Not since now, since like these people had like when I followed Justin Welch, he had like 50,000 followers. Now he has, I don't know, like 500,000, 400,000. I don't even know. So if you're going to be smart about growing online and be lazy, if you're like me, because I'm lazy, comment on other people's stuff. Okay? Because it shows them that you exist and it shows their audience that you're bringing. Now, if you are even more smart, dig one level deeper because the truth is, while you will gain visibility with this, the bigger accounts are too busy or they're outsourced to actually read your stuff. You are only appealing to their audience. However, when you are at 10 followers and you're commenting on somebody's stuff with 50 followers, that person with 50 followers will see your stuff. They will read your comment. They'll even hit a follow because they're also growing, right? So if you want to dig deeper in the engagement game, which you absolutely should, okay, the second step would be to see people under these people's comments and comment on their stuff. And I think that's how I know Arunima today because she was mentioned under some random comment, and that happened a few years ago. And we both barely had any followers that time. Okay, and then the good part about that is that you know each other because you genuinely make an effort to engage with each other, but you're also constantly learning from each other because you guys are growing from such small numbers together. And that is how online relationships are formed. And I would tell you today that online relationships are really, really crucial. Reason being that, okay, true story, I went out for lunch today. Until date, my mom and my husband do not know what exactly I do for a living. Okay. They're just like, oh, you're always lying down on the sofa. And I'm like, yeah, but that's my break time. That's why I am lying down, and because I have a back issue and I'm not allowed to sit for extended periods. But I get it, it's complicated. For instance, when I got trolled for my first time ever, I looked at my screen and I cried for half an hour. And I called up my husband, my then fiance, and I'm like, I got trolled. And he's like, okay, why you crying? What is there to cry about? It's a random person. I'm like, because it feels bad. The stuff that they said is so mean. But I literally reached out to a woman who I was connected with. She's in a different country and she was online at that time. Can you believe for like a good 20 minutes she texted and consoled me through it all? Which a person in real life will not waste their energy on. Till date, I bounce off my ideas through random people on the internet. And I know they're not going to steal it because, firstly, people don't even execute their own ideas, leave alone about stealing somebody else's and executing it. So, online relationships are really helpful because you have somebody to bounce off ideas with, you have somebody to discuss your things with, discuss your challenges with, discuss your wins with. And when you win, these are the people who genuinely understand it. People in real life, at least like from what I've experienced, they have no clue about what you're doing. I literally had somebody who said, "Oh, like you're a writer, so you don't really work, right? You just have like a passion project that probably might earn you a pocket money. That stuff exists." So, and I'm like, yeah, it's just a pocket money. So, but people online will understand that no, like it's a real thing. So, I know this is way too deep, but I mention all this because these are the things I did as a beginner. And I know some of you here who do have the zeal to be really serious about it and really make it. You are not here for the, you are here for the fun of it, but you're not here just to listen and try and lose. A lot of here are, some of you are where I was a few years ago, where in your head you know you want to get out of what you're feeling stuck with. You don't know how, but you want to give it your best. If that's you, please dig deeper into engagement. I'm still surprised how most people don't talk about it, whereas you can write all the content in the world that you want, but if nobody's commenting on your stuff because you're not visible, it really doesn't matter. Nobody even knows that you're writing that kind of stuff, right? So, yeah, this is what I have to talk about engagement. And how much time do we have? Again, this thing is not working. You can just type it out, maybe. Okay, cool. Um, I think I mentioned the pro writing in software. Yeah, just read the question again. Cool. So, I think I'm going to get to the last section of this. And by the way, this entire talk, I did not plan it. Because reason being, firstly, I'm under the weather. So I've just been resting because I feel weak. And secondly, when I do plan things, I actually do a really shitty job at it because then I focus more on what is it that I have forgotten instead of just putting my own thing. It's like following a template that this is the example I wrote that, so that is the example I should be talking about. Whereas when I do this, I'm also being selfish because I'm challenging my own creative game by creating examples on the spot, which sometimes don't make sense, sometimes they do. So how do you be consistent? Firstly, it's very hard to show up if you're not having fun. Okay. Secondly, it's it's easier to show up when you have a system around your writing. Third, it's easier to show up if you aren't making it so hard for yourself with your entire writing process. So, an example of that is if you are working 10 hours and then you decide, okay, then I'll eat dinner, okay, I'll take rest. Now it's 10 p.m., now I will write. It's very hard to write then. It's a very unsustainable method because you're so exhausted. How can you write? You're just so, you're exhausted with your entire day, okay? Um, so make the process easier for yourself. And something that really helped me during my 9 to 5 was breaking down the process. So I would write ideas on one day, which I would outline those ideas on a different day. No, I would write ideas on one day, but usually in the afternoons I used to outline my ideas. When you take like a tea break during the pandemic while working from home. In the evening, I used to type out my article, and in the morning, I used to edit. I never ever write and edit on the same day. I always sleep it off and edit the next day so that I can think with a fresh mind. So, yeah, that's what helped me. But what can help you would be entirely different. Try this out. Try doing everything at once. Try having like different days for different things. That's what Tim Denning does. I think he writes 2 days a week, he edits 2 days a week, and things like that. Okay. So that kind of stuff helps. Try out these methods. It's called batching. And then the first one is just like me randomly breaking down the process. So try this out and see what works for you. But something about ideation. A lot of people say, okay, where do I get ideas from? How do you keep pushing out content consistently? The first thing that really helps is monitoring your information diet. So if you're going to follow and consume absolute crap, that is the stuff that you're putting here. And what you want to put out there is also coming from here. So you might as well not put crap here. Okay. How I personally do that is that I have muted all politics stuff on Twitter and I strictly follow like creator economy folks, entirely creator economy folks. Same with LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I don't scroll, but I have a Google Sheet link with 10, 12 profiles and I just like open their profile and see their latest post. Unless, like, sometimes, obviously, I'm human, so I will open the LinkedIn app. If I see like a friend of mine post something online, I'll see it. But I don't scroll because when you scroll, most of the stuff that you're seeing is absolute. Shouldn't be so rude also. Most of the stuff is just not nice. And you do not have the time for not nice content when you can actually read really good content. Same with books, any books. I'm not the kind that you should read certain books. I think reading is such a wonderful experience and a beautiful habit that read whatever makes you happy. Okay. So I'm actually very deep into this that I also don't use Instagram because Instagram makes me feel very less. When I was on Instagram, I always felt less successful, less fit, less pretty, less everything. So I personally don't use it because it makes my mind in such a happy place to not use Instagram. But you do you. Monitor your information diet. Consume good podcasts because a lot of your ideas are not going to be completely real experiences. A lot of your ideas will actually be something that you have read that spikes an idea that, oh yeah, I also did something, or I have an opinion on this, or I had a similar experience to this. So monitor your information diet. That's one way to get ideas. The second way, and that's the way that I follow, and I highly recommend you to follow, knowing that it's a very irritating thing to do, so you might not follow it, is that write 10 ideas a day. It will suck and it will make you pull your hair out. But I think that creativity is a muscle, writing is a muscle, it grows with practice, but so is ideation. It's easier to get ideas when you have a system for it. So if you're writing 10 ideas a day, honestly, in my scenario, 8 out of 10 ideas are pathetic. Okay, but if even if I get one idea out of those 10 ideas to work on, that's my goal is achieved, right? Not all 10 have to be good. Sometimes you get one idea, sometimes you get three. And that's fine. Just keep working on your ideation muscle by writing 10 ideas a day. If 10 is too much, start with 5. But honestly, 10 ideas do not take more than 5, 7 minutes. So take out those 5, 7 minutes to write those 10 ideas. Do not judge yourself during that time because you will write random things, you will write repetitive things, and that's okay. Again, just like everything else, you will get better with time. And just getting to some, so this is basically how you be consistent. You have your ideation strategy, and then how you balance the writing or the elements of writing around your routine. And finally, there are always questions about LinkedIn algorithm. How many times should you post? All of that. I think that twice a week is good to start with. When I went to LinkedIn office, they said that 3 times a week is ideal. But if you can't do thrice a week, at least start with once and go to twice. I'm posting 6 times a week because I'm just like, I'm a Gemini and we are really talkative people. Like, think of it. I've been talking for an hour with nothing planned. So we are really talkative. I have a lot of things to say all the time. And yeah, nobody at home wants to listen to my nerdy shit, so it just comes on LinkedIn and people happen to like it. And literally, my favorite example of it is when I heard the Andrew Huberman podcast on alcohol, and I told my husband, who loves alcohol, about, do you know, science has said that there is not a single benefit of alcohol. And I heard 3 hours on this and that, and he's like, can you just shut up? I don't want to listen about this. Yeah, and this is the reaction I would get people from in real life, but somehow people online seem to enjoy that kind of nerdy stuff from me. So yeah. Um, have your ideation, have your writing in process, try to show once a week, move it up to twice, move it up to 3 times. But my final thing, actually not my final thing, my second last thing to tell you is that don't be attached to your work, especially when you're starting out. When you're starting anything, when you start playing football, you're not going to be amazing in a month or 6 months, but you will get better. You will improve, let's say, after 10 to 12 months, right? So, how can you be a writing superstar in a month? It doesn't happen that way. Okay. So, you've come here, you've at least got the strategies, but then you have to apply all this, and this does take time. So, be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself. Don't get attached to your work that I spent 2 hours on this. Why is this not getting work? I spent so much time. The outcome is not in your control, only the process is. My first viral post on LinkedIn that got over 1 million views was 12 words. Those 12 words were, today I've quit my job to become a full-time writer. That's all that it was. That was effortless for me, but that got a lot of traction, right? The internet is a really random place. You'll work hard, not get traction. You'll work hard, get a lot of traction. And then the opposite also happens. So do not worry so much about stats. I personally do not check my stats at all because that's not in my control. I just focus on creating really good content. And my final thing to tell you is that trust me, people can sense it when you come from a place of having fun or when you're writing for the heck of it or to spread negativity. You can spread negativity and it will get a lot of traction. I don't recommend it because I just think you should be aware of your core values. But it's just easier to write when you're having fun. Even after a tiring day, it's easier to write when you enjoy the entire process of writing, the art of writing. It's easier to write good things when you're actually happy about writing what you're writing about. So the outcome isn't in your control, but having fun is always in your control. I do not even post if I'm not like enjoying that time when I'm writing something. So please have fun with your writing. It will make your writing shine. It will give a lot of energy to your writing, which others will be able to sense when they read your work. And I guess that's all that I have for today.
Okay, sorry, I step in for the question session. We have one from Ayush about AI. So he's asking if you have any idea or in general what you think about AI to write outlines and the first draft of a piece.
Yeah. I mean, I use my notebook and pen for outlining and then I type out my first draft. I actually don't recommend AI for the first draft because how are you going to be better at writing if you are not writing, basically? So it's not going to really help. And yeah, and I don't even use AI, so I'm like the last person to give a opinion on it because I generally do not use AI. Like I told you, I always have so many things to talk about and so many ideas that I haven't so far felt the need to leverage AI.
Adam is asking, what do you think about repurposing Twitter threads on LinkedIn?
Great idea. Just make it easier to read and don't make it too long.
Okay. And there is one more question from Simon. Do you have any content management repurposing system?
So what I do usually is that my Twitter thread becomes my newsletter, and then I sometimes also, not sometimes, every time that I have like a snapshot of a quote that I'm using on LinkedIn that is also derived from my tweets.
Okay. Uh, wait, I'm reading the question that Jordan just posted.
Yeah.
You mentioned, well, I read it because it's a bit long. You mentioned posting inspirational quotes to get going. Would you say 2 posts a day is good or too much for LinkedIn? Like one quote
I
in the
think,
morning
yeah.
and one article in the evening.
I do personally think that 2 posts is too much and it's also unsustainable. So don't do things that you cannot be sustainable with. If you can't write 5 posts a week forever, then do not do 5 posts a week. One of my friends, when he started writing online, he wrote 22 Medium articles in a second month. He never showed up on Medium again. So that's when I learned to not go overboard. And I do think 2 posts a day is too much, especially when you have a smaller audience. Nobody's reading it anyway. I would do like 3 to 5 posts a week.
Sid asks, do you have recommendations on how to become a LinkedIn top voice?
I mean, like, why do you want to become top voice? It's just a tag, it doesn't matter. But usually, like, I don't know, I don't even think there are guidelines or something, but focus on creating really good content instead of going after vanity tags and metrics. When you write good content, you get opportunities, you get these badges. So focus on that instead of chasing the outcomes.
Okay. Adam has a more technical one. Have you noticed any difference in performance posting organically on LinkedIn versus using iFury to schedule your posts?
Same, like literally the same. I think like somebody once told me that if you use a scheduler, you get less attraction. But that's not true because I've been using Hypefury to schedule on LinkedIn for a long time.
And I had one here that was missing. No, this one we read it again. Read it already. There is one more from Kairav. Resources for writing better hooks.
Read other people's hooks that you like and practice your own. You'll get an idea of how to get better and what's working. But a lot of the just if you want to get better at writing, you just have to keep writing for a long, 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 long time. Practice makes it better.
I think we went through all the questions from the participants. I'm checking that maybe somebody posts one last minute, but no, it seems we are done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Niharika, for sharing your experience with us. And now there are the thanks arriving. So thank you a lot, and
Thank
I
you.
hope to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay. We can